Welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is Narayan Rao Kovur. In this video, we are going to explain law of demand. What is law of demand? What are the assumptions of law of demand? Law of demand can be explained with the help of demand schedule, demand curve, and demand equation. So now let us examine first law of demand. Law of demand explains functional relationship between quantity demand of a commodity and its own price. Law of demand explains functional relationship between quantity demand and price of the same commodity. Ceteris paribus, that means other things being equal. Ceteris paribus, when price increases, quantity demand contracts. When price rises, quantity demand contracts. When price falls, quantity demand expanded. So there is a inverse or negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. Next, law of demand shows that direction of a change in demand is due to చేంజ్ ఇన్ ప్రైస్. అందుకే మనం ఇట్లా ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేసేటప్పుడు ప్రైస్కి డిమాండ్కి ఉన్న రిలేషన్షిప్ని ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేసేటప్పుడు యారో మార్క్స్ ఉపయోగిస్తాం. యారో మార్క్స్ దేన్ని తెలియచేస్తాయి? డైరెక్షన్ని తెలియచేస్తాయి. సో లా ఆఫ్ డిమాండ్ షోస్ దట్ డైరెక్షన్ ఆఫ్ ఏ చేంజ్ ఇన్ డిమాండ్ ఈజ్ డ్యూ టు చేంజ్ ఇన్ ప్రైస్. This is known as law of demand. Law of demand is a qualitative statement, not quantitative statement. Law of demand is a qualitative statement. So first you observe, this is the price, this is the quantity demanded. If the price of the commodity rises, quantity demand is contracted. Price of the commodity falls, quantity demand of the commodity expanded. There is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demand of the same commodity. Next, this is the introduction to the law of demand. Law of demand mainly depends upon some assumptions. The assumptions are, one is rational consumer. Consumer is assumed to be rational. Rational consumer is a consumer who always seeks maximum satisfaction with his limited income. He is called rational consumer. Second one, consumers are assumed to have perfect knowledge about market conditions. Consumers ki market conditions గురించి పర్ఫెక్ట్ నాలెడ్జ్ తెలిసి ఉండాలి. థర్డ్ వన్, ceteris paribus except its own price. ప్రైస్ తప్ప మిగతావన్నీ కాన్స్టెంట్గా ఉండాలి. Right. Demand schedule. Law of demand can be explained with the help of demand schedule, demand curve, and demand equation. First, demand schedule. Demand schedule is a table showing that different quantities of a commodity or service that buyers are willing and able to purchase at different prices during a given period of time is known as demand schedule. Demand schedule is a table showing that different quantities of a commodity or service that buyers are willing and able to purchase at different prices during a given period of time. This is known as demand schedule. Right. Demand schedule is two types: individual demand schedule, market demand schedule. So now let us examine individual demand schedule. Individual demand schedule shows that, so it is a table showing that different quantities of a commodity that buyers are willing and able to purchase at various prices during a given period of time by the single consumer. That is known as individual demand schedule. A table that shows different quantities of a commodity demanded by single consumer at various prices, ceteris paribus. This is known as individual demand schedule. In the table we observe that as price increases, price rises, demand contracts, and vice versa. Price falls, demand expands. So, next, this is the demand schedule, hypothetical demand schedule. So, there are two columns, price in rupees and quantity demand in units. Price 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Price falls. What about quantity demand 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? Quantity demand expands. If you observe the table, so in the table we observe that as price rises, demand contracts and vice versa. Price rises, demand contracts. It shows that there is an inverse or negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. Next, demand curve. Demand curve. So it is a graphical presentation of demand schedule. Demand curve is a graphical presentation of demand schedule, that is called demand curve. So demand curve also, so just observe the table. So how to draw the demand curve? First draw L shape, mark YOX. Price is measured on y-axis, quantity demand is measured on x-axis. So price 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Price falls. 1 centimeter is equal to 10 rupees. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Whereas quantity minimum is 2, maximum is 10. 1 centimeter is equal to 2 units taken. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So draw the boxes for each. So 52, 44, 36, 28, 10, 10. Then you connect the intersecting points with a straight line. Then you will get a demand curve. This is called demand curve. This is called demand curve. So demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. So demand curve describes inverse or negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. Slope of the demand curve is change in price by change in the quantity. Delta P by delta Q. This slope of the demand curve antam. Next, demand curve is linear or demand curve is non-linear or curvilinear. Demand curve straight line గా ఉండొచ్చు, డౌన్వర్డ్ స్లోపింగ్, అలానే curvilinear గా కూడా ఉండొచ్చు. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, demand curve is linear, slope is constant. Demand curve is non-linear, slope will be different, slope will be changed. Yes, finally demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. Demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. So if we observe the table and diagram, both shows that there is an inverse or negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. So if you observe the table, price falls, quantity demand expands, and vice versa. If you observe the demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. Price falls, quantity demand expanded. Price rises, quantity demand is contracted. Therefore, we concluded that there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Next, second one is market demand schedule. So market demand schedule means it is a table showing that various quantities of a commodity that buyers are willing and able to purchase at various prices during a given period of time by more number of consumers. This is known as market demand schedule. How to obtain market demand schedule? Horizontal summation or lateral summation of individual demand schedule, we obtain market demand schedule. Next, based on the information available in the market demand schedule, we draw the market demand curve. So market demand curve is the graphical presentation of market demand schedule. So horizontal summation or lateral summation of individual demand curves, we obtain market demand curve. So individual demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. Market demand curve also slopes downwards from left to right, but market demand curve is flatter than individual demand curve. Market demand curve is flatter than individual demand curve. Next, law of demand can be explained with the help of demand schedule, with the help of demand curve. It can be also explained with the help of demand equation. So what is demand equation? Q is equal to A minus BP. Q is equal to A minus BP. Q means quantity demanded. A means vertical intercept. So B means slope. P means price. Minus indicates that inverse negative or inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So law of demand can be explained with the help of demand equation also. What is demand equation? What is demand equation? Demand equation Q is equal to A minus BP. Q is equal to quantity. A is equal to vertical intercept or B is equal to slope. P is equal to price. Minus indicates that inverse or negative relationship. Minus indicates that inverse or negative relationship. So finally we concluded that law of demand means ceteris paribus, price rises, quantity demand contracts, and vice versa. There is an inverse or negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. So thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and comment.